"You're not cut out to run a business, little brother." That's what she told me, my sister, Nicole, while standing stiffly across the desk from me, arms crossed like she was posing for some leadership magazine cover. My name's Steven Weber, and for the past 15 years, I've been the one making sure Skirich Hotels, our family's boutique chain, didn't fall apart at the seams. My job, as I saw it, was to keep our 8 properties across the Northeast humming along without a hitch. I made sure the staff felt like more than cogs in a machine, and that our guests always had a reason to come back. Simple things, but the kind that matter. Nicole had been president for all of 11 days, ever since Dad decided to step up into the chairman role. And her first official move? Apparently, it was to give me the boot. "The board believes we need some fresh thinking," she said, watching as I quietly emptied out the drawer in my desk. She meant her, our dad, and 2 of her B-school pals she'd just appointed to the board a week ago. That was her board. "We've brought in a consultant from Marriott to take over your responsibilities," she added, with the kind of calm smugness that only comes from having everything fall into place exactly how you imagined it. I gave her a nod, not letting a single emotion cross my face. Meanwhile, I tucked away the picture frames and desk knickknacks I'd collected over the years. One by one. Carefully. Nicole had always been the public face of the company. She charmed investors, spoke at flashy industry conferences, and soaked up the praise for our success. Meanwhile, I was in the trenches, hammering out supplier deals, managing renovations, putting out fires behind the scenes. The stuff that didn't make headlines but kept the doors open and the lights on. "You'll get 6 months severance," she added briskly, giving her watch a glance like she had more important things to do. "HR has all the paperwork ready." I took my time packing up, making sure nothing broke. The last thing I placed in the box was a framed photo of our grandfather, standing proudly in front of the very first Skirich Hotel up in Albany. It used to hang in Dad's office. Nicole never bothered to put it up in hers. "Nothing to say?" she asked, just a little too eagerly. Her blazer was crisp, her manicure flawless, and not a single hair dared fall out of place. She looked like she was born for boardrooms. I just gave her a lopsided grin. "Good luck with the Buffalo renovation," I said casually. For a split second, I saw something flicker in her eyes, panic. Maybe. Buffalo was our biggest property, and the renovation was a mess, behind schedule, bleeding money, and heading into deeper trouble. That mess was hers now. "We'll be fine," she snapped back, recovering fast. My consultants turned around properties twice that size. Another nod from me. I picked up my box and walked out without saying another word. 15 years of work, wiped out in 15 minutes. What Nicole didn't realize, or maybe had just overlooked in her rush to grab the reins, was that 5 years back, Dad had pulled me aside and shared something that stuck. "Steven," he told me, "never put all your eggs in one basket. Hotels are in our blood, sure. But land is where the real value is." I'd taken that advice seriously. While Nicole collected awards and played visionary, I'd been moving quietly behind the curtain. So as I drove away from our Boston headquarters, I wasn't worried. I had time. And time, I knew, was on my side, especially with those lease renewals coming up in just 3 months. I grew up watching Dad take that single shaky property in Albany, Vermont, and turn it into a respected regional brand. Nicole tagged along to investor meetings and industry panels, learning the art of presentation. Me? I was more at home tagging along with the maintenance guys, learning how the boiler systems worked or how to reroute a faulty AC unit. By the time I was 16, I could negotiate with linen vendors and diagnose an HVAC issue faster than half the staff we paid to do it. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just knew every little part mattered. "Your sister sees the big picture," Dad used to say. "You see the details that make the big picture possible." And it worked for a while. But as Dad got older, Nicole's ambition grew faster than the company itself. She brought in consultants armed with sleek PowerPoint decks and vague ideas about restructuring. She talked about expanding nationally, rubbing shoulders with celebrities, and creating some lifestyle brand. Sometimes I wondered if she remembered what business we were actually in, giving people a warm, comfortable place to lay their heads. 5 years ago, when Dad first mentioned stepping back, I saw the writing on the wall. During a routine finance review, I noticed something strange. Our 3 most profitable locations, Albany, Providence, and Buffalo, were all operating on leased land, not owned. The original landlords had been elderly when we signed those 99-year leases, and now their heirs were getting antsy and looking to sell. "It's a risk," I told Dad one afternoon over steaks at his favorite old-school restaurant. If someone else buys that land and jacks up our rates, we're screwed. He nodded slowly. I've been meaning to deal with that, he said, but every spare dime's been going into the new property in Providence. I could buy them, I offered carefully. Not a Skirich, just me. I'd keep the lease terms the same. Dad looked up from his coffee and peered at me over the top of his glasses. That would take a serious personal investment, Stephen. I've been saving, I said plainly. And I still believe in what we've built. The very next day, he put me in touch with our bank. 3 months later, I quietly became the owner of the land beneath our 3 flagship properties. The company remained the tenant, thanks to a 5-year preferential lease we'd structured, one that would be up for renewal soon enough. Does Nicole know about this deal? Dad had asked as we went over the paperwork one final time. It's all in the official company files, I told him. But unless she absolutely has to, she doesn't bother reading them. He gave a knowing chuckle. Your sister sees the big picture. You catch the details. One day, she'll understand how much that really matters. Driving home from my last day at Skirich, I wondered if that day had finally come. It hadn't escaped me, the subtle power shifts over the past year. Nicole had been easing me out for a while, cutting me out of strategic meetings, shooting down my budget proposals without much explanation, reassigning my best people. The writing had been on the wall long before our little meeting this morning. Still, I stuck to my routine the next day. Got up at 5:30 like always. For the last 15 years, I'd started every morning the same way, reading the overnight reports from our properties and fixing problems before anyone else even knew they existed. But this time, my phone stayed quiet. No urgent texts, no overnight emergencies. Just stillness. I made some coffee and sat out on my back porch, watching the container ships glide steadily across Boston. There's something I've always appreciated about them, how they move with purpose, no wasted effort, no fanfare. Just hauling value from one place to the next. My phone finally buzzed. A message from Gabriel, our head of maintenance at the Buffalo Hotel. Sorry to hear what happened, man. Their loss. New consultants already making cuts. Renovations going downhill. Not good. I sent a quick thanks. No advice, no suggestions. Not my job anymore. Then came another message. This one from Dad. Breakfast at 8 o'clock. Diner. Just 2 blocks from our first real office. We used to go there all the time, but it had been years since we'd sat down together there. When I arrived, he was already at our usual corner booth, looking older than I remembered. I slid into the seat across from him, and he gave me a small nod. She told me afterward, he said flatly. I wouldn't have handled it that way. But you didn't stop it, I replied. I wasn't asking, just stating the obvious. He let out a long sigh and stirred his coffee. Nicole believes Skirich needs to evolve. Become more corporate. Less family-run. And you agree? I asked. I think, he said slowly, measuring every word, that your sister has a vision that appeals to the board. The waitress brought our usual orders without even asking black coffee and blueberry pancakes for him, eggs and toast for me. Some things don't change. The land, he said, once she left. Nicole doesn't really grasp how those lease agreements work. I cut into my eggs. The documents are all there. It's spelled out plainly. You know she skips the fine print, he said, giving me a pointed look. The lease is up in 3 months, I reminded him. I've already spoken to my lawyer. He set his fork down and looked straight at me. What are you planning, Stephen? The question just hung there. And in that moment, I realized I'd been gearing up for this exact conversation for years, maybe even longer. I was the quiet one, the dependable one. Now, for once, I had leverage. Nicole might have had the spotlight, but I had the land under her feet. I thought I'd feel triumphant, maybe even smug. But honestly, I just felt tired. Market rate leases, I said. Nothing special. Just fair market value. He nodded slowly. That's going to hit our operating costs pretty hard. I know, I said, holding his gaze. That's the point. We finished eating without saying much. When we stepped outside, he put a hand on my shoulder. Your sister treats this business like a game she's trying to win, he said. But you've always looked at it as something to build, something that should last. Don't lose sight of that. He walked away, and for the first time, I noticed the slump in his shoulders. Age had crept in, quietly. And just like that, I saw things clearly for the first time. This wasn't just about Nicole not seeing my worth. This was about Dad letting a slow division grow between us for decades and never doing anything to stop it. Back home, I went into my office. On the wall was a framed copy of the original architectural plans for our first hotel in Albany. I put it up the day I bought the land it sat on. Time to focus on the foundation. 2 weeks after I was pushed out, Nicole finally reached out. I let the call go to voicemail. Her message was professional, calculated. "Stephen, we need to discuss the transition. Some of the files are missing. Please call me back." No apology. No mention of 15 years of loyalty. Just business, like always. I erased the message and spent the rest of the afternoon catching up with an old college buddy who'd gone on to make a name for himself in commercial real estate. The following day, she showed up unannounced at my condo. As soon as I opened the door, she pushed past me straight into the living room. "You've been avoiding me," she snapped. "I'm just honoring your choice to cut me out of the business," I said calmly. She made herself at home on my couch without asking, while I stayed on my feet. "What documents are you saying you can't find?" I asked. "Vendor agreements, maintenance logs, the full renovation plans for Buffalo?" She scowled. "And the financials. There's a hole in the lease records. We're missing key data." "It's all still on the shared drive," I said, shrugging. "Filed by property and department. Same system we've always used." "Well, your system isn't exactly user-friendly," she snapped, crossing her legs and tapping her designer heel, clearly annoyed. "And your replacement needs background." I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, didn't offer her one. "He's a seasoned hospitality consultant," I said, letting the words hang. "He's revived properties double our size. I'm confident he can figure out a folder structure." Her eyes narrowed. She didn't appreciate hearing her own logic parroted back to her. "This isn't productive, Stephen. The company needs—" "I don't work for the company anymore," I cut in. "Remember?" Nicole stood up stiffly, brushing down her skirt. "Fine. I'll have legal submit a formal request." "Do what you need to do," I said, already heading for the door. Conversation over. A week later, a certified letter showed up from Skirich's legal team. They were asking for all documents related to business operations. I forwarded it to my attorney, who replied with a detailed inventory of everything already accessible on the company's servers and a courteous reminder that my personal notes and files were private property. Not long after, I started getting calls from Skirich staff. The new consultant was cracking down, slashing hours, postponing repairs, and swapping out longtime vendors for cheaper options. Morale was sinking fast. Guests were starting to notice. But instead of feeling vindicated, I just felt empty. These were folks I'd worked alongside for years, some I'd personally hired. And now, their jobs were on the line thanks to Nicole's vision and my own absence. Then came an email from our insurance provider. They needed clarification about recent changes in property ownership affecting 3 of our key hotels. That's when Nicole hit a wall. She tried updating the insurance policies and ran into reality. The land under our most profitable hotels? It wasn't owned by the company. It was owned by me. I passed the email to my lawyer without a word. The next morning, my dad called. His voice was tight. "Did you know Nicole doesn't read the legal stuff?" "Yeah," I said quietly. He sighed hard. "She's called an emergency board meeting. Says you've been hiding critical info from the company." "Nothing's hidden," I told him. "Every lease is properly filed. The company's been paying me rent for 5 years." "Paying you?" He actually sounded surprised. "The records show payments to BK Holdings." She thought that was just a management firm. "BK Holdings," I said. "Stephen Weber Holdings." Nicole had been signing off on financial reports for years, not realizing she was approving rent payments to her own brother. "The board meets tomorrow," Dad said. "I'm not on the board anymore," I reminded him. "Stephen," his voice softened, "this is still our family business." After we hung up, I sat at my desk, turning an old hotel key over in my hand, my grandfather's. It opened the very first place my dad had turned into what would become Skirich. Family business. Yeah. Families are supposed to look out for each other. An hour later, my lawyer called. "Skirich's legal team is asking for the lease renewal terms. How would you like to respond?" I'd already made up my mind. Send them the new terms. Market rate. No special treatment. The Buffalo Hotel rose 8 stories at the corner of Ocean Avenue, its wide windows gleaming in the morning sun as they caught the light off Casco Bay. I'd overseen its transformation personally, turning a rundown roadside lodge into one of our signature properties. Now, I was sitting in my car across the street, watching guests come and go, completely unaware of the corporate chaos unraveling in the background. My phone buzzed. A message from Christina, my attorney. "They've received the new lease terms." Expecting a reply today. I already knew the numbers would rattle them. The below-market lease terms I'd offered 5 years back had ended up saving Skirich close to $2 million every year across all 3 properties. But with the new terms on the table, that entire advantage would vanish. As I sat there watching, a silver Mercedes, one I knew all too well, rolled into the reserved spot by the front entrance. Nicole. She wasn't even supposed to be in Providence today. I instinctively slumped down in my seat as she strode purposefully into the building, phone to her ear, talking animatedly and waving her hand in the air. I couldn't help myself, curiosity took over. I called Gabriel. "Your sister's on a tear," he said, skipping any sort of greeting. "Emergency inspection. Brought the new consultant with her too." "What are they looking for?" I asked. "Blueprints, property files." "Mentioned something about a structural assessment," he said, dropping his voice. "Off the record, I think they're trying to figure out if they can challenge your ownership." I thanked him, then headed straight to the Public Records Office in Providence. I opened my laptop and started pulling everything: deed transfers, property surveys, lease documents. Everything was by the book, filed properly, legal, just like I'd expected. What I didn't expect was what turned up in the neighboring county's database: a permit request from 2 years ago, filed by Nicole under her married name. It was for a commercial development project on untouched oceanfront land just outside the city limits. The business listed? Revengestory LLC. Not Skirich. A completely separate entity with Nicole listed as the sole owner. I kept digging. More permits popped up, similar ones in Albany and near our Buffalo location. All submitted by Revengestory. All for hotels that would compete directly with ours. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. While I'd been running the family business with complete dedication, Nicole had been secretly laying the groundwork to launch her own hotel chain. Firing me wasn't about thinking I wasn't good enough. It was about clearing the path for her real plans. I called Christina right away. "I need you to dig into a company called Revengestory LLC," I told her. 2 days later, we had the whole story. Turns out Nicole had been quietly pitching investors for nearly 3 years, building out a luxury hotel brand of her own. Christina, through a connection, got hold of Nicole's business plan, and there it was in black and white. She was planning to leverage the knowledge and client relationships developed at Skirich and go head-to-head in the same markets where we already had a strong presence. On the morning of the emergency board meeting, I got a call from someone I hadn't expected: Raymond Davis, one of Nicole's old business school buddies and a board member at Skirich. "I've seen the lease renewal proposal," he said straight away. "And there are whispers going around about Revengestory." "It's not just rumors," I told him. There was a long silence. "I respected your father. That's the reason I joined the board," he said. Then, another pause. "Nicole told us you were stepping down on your own, said you were ready to pursue something new." "Did she mention her own new venture?" I asked. He let out a slow sigh. "No. That's why I'm calling. I've got some notes here. She's planning to propose that Skirich sell the Providence, Albany, and Buffalo properties. Says the new lease terms make them unprofitable." That's when it all clicked. Her plan wasn't just to compete. She wanted to buy out Skirich's crown jewels, not the land, just the buildings, which would let her company pick them up at fire sale prices. And since I owned the land, she'd end up leasing from me. It was a twisted setup, but it was smart and ruthless. "Thanks for the heads up," I said. "I didn't tell you anything," he replied, and then hung up. I sat there, letting a wave of cold, sharp anger roll through me. This wasn't just a business move. It was a personal betrayal, deeper than I'd ever imagined. I skipped the board meeting. Instead, I flew straight to New York to sit down with Samuel Brown, the CEO of Commonwealth Hotels. We'd met several times at industry events, and he'd once tried to recruit me. I turned him down back then, out of loyalty to the family. But now, that loyalty felt badly misplaced. "Interesting timing," Samuel said as we settled into his sleek office with a view of Central Park. "I heard Skirich is thinking about offloading some properties. 3 of them," I confirmed. "Their most profitable ones." He leaned in a little. "And you own the land underneath those hotels." I nodded, a detail my sister didn't fully grasp until recently. Samuel gave me a tight, businesslike smile. "So tell me, Stephen, what exactly are you proposing?" "A partnership," I said. The plan was simple. Commonwealth would buy the buildings once Skirich decided to sell, and I'd hang on to the land underneath. I'd then offer Samuel and his team favorable lease terms, ones that made long-term sense for both of us. I slid a folder across his desk, loaded with everything he'd need: full financials, operational summaries, and the proposal itself. While he flipped through the documents, I let my gaze wander out the window. Central Park in early fall, a view like that made you feel like anything was possible. 15 years I'd spent working at Skirich, and not once had I been given an office with this kind of view. Nicole always made sure the prime spaces were reserved for client meetings, she said. Really, it meant her office, front and center, always playing the role of the brand's face. These properties actually fit pretty well with our current expansion strategy, Samuel said at last, snapping me back to the moment. But I've got to ask, why not just raise the rent and force your sister to keep running the hotels? You'd probably make more money that way. Because she's already laying the groundwork for her own hotel chain, I told him. One that's designed to compete directly with Skirich. He raised his eyebrows but kept scanning the paperwork. While she's still running Skirich. That's bold. That's one word for it, I said, trying to keep my tone even. The way I see it, her plan was to let these properties lose value, convince the board to sell, and then pick them up through her new venture at a discount. With you, technically, as her landlord. Samuel laughed under his breath. That would be awkward. I prefer to be a little more selective when it comes to who I do business with. I looked him in the eye. Commonwealth's reputation for keeping employees during acquisitions, that matters to me. These aren't just buildings. The people who've kept them running deserve stability. He stared at me for a long moment before finally nodding. Family businesses, they're always messy, he said. Not anymore, I replied. This stopped being about family the moment she put personal ambition ahead of everything else. Now it's about protecting what we built the right way. 2 days later, Commonwealth's legal team got to work drafting up acquisition offers. At the same time, I started making quiet calls to Gabriel and a few other trusted team members at the 3 hotels. I didn't tell them everything, but I let them know change might be coming and assured them that their jobs would be safe. But the hospitality world moves fast. Before we could finalize anything, a well-connected industry blog ran a story speculating that Skirich was facing financial trouble and that Commonwealth was circling its most valuable assets. The leak caught fire. Nicole didn't waste time. She fired off a company-wide email denying any plans to sell, doubling down on Skirich's so-called strong market position. Then my father called. His voice sounded tired. The board shot down her proposal to sell the properties, he said. Good, I replied. Nothing more needed to be said. She's furious, he added. Says you're sabotaging the company from the outside. There was a pause. She found out about your meetings with Commonwealth, he added quietly. I didn't say anything. What are you really trying to do here, Stephen? He asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. And maybe he didn't even realize just how deep it went. What was I trying to do? Was this about getting even? About holding her accountable? Or was it about something deeper, fixing what had been broken for a long time? I'm protecting what I built, I said finally. Just like you taught me to. 3 weeks passed, and Skirich's quarterly report came out. It wasn't good. Revenue had taken a hit, and operating costs were climbing. The stock dropped 12% that same day. Later that afternoon, I got an official request, a meeting with the board, minus Nicole, to discuss strategic alternatives for the struggling properties. My lawyer and Samuel's team spent days prepping every detail. When the day came, I stepped into Skirich's boardroom for the first time since I'd been pushed out. The tension in the air was thick. Nicole sat at the head of the table, her expression tight, trying to keep control. Our father was seated beside her, older somehow, the weight of it all clear on his face. The other board members filled the room, their expressions unreadable, masks of neutrality. I took the seat at the opposite end, laid my portfolio on the table, and waited. Nicole spoke first. Her voice was clipped, all sharp edges. Let's be clear about what's happening here, she said. My brother is attempting a hostile takeover of the company our father built. I didn't flinch. That's not true, I said, keeping my voice calm. I'm simply exercising my rights as the property owner. Commonwealth is interested in acquiring buildings that Skirich no longer finds viable under the updated lease agreements. Raymond Davis cleared his throat. The board never approved selling those properties. That's because the board was misled, I said, sliding a set of folders toward them. These documents prove that, while she was still president of Skirich, Nicole was secretly developing a competing hotel brand, one that directly targets our best markets. The room went dead silent. My father's face went pale as he flipped open the folder in front of him. This is ridiculous, Nicole snapped, trying to keep her composure. Weber Vision is a consulting firm, not a hotel developer with permit filings in 3 cities where Skirich operates. I finished for her. Not a company with a business plan that spells out its strategy to capitalize on Skirich's client base and internal expertise. Our father turned to her, his expression heavy with betrayal. Is this true? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence told the whole story. I went on. Commonwealth's offer is above market value. They're committed to keeping all current employees and honoring every standing guest reservation. I let that sit in the air for a moment before finishing, which is a lot more than Revengestory ever planned to do. You've been planning this for years, Nicole hissed, her voice cracking. Buying the land, just waiting to spring your trap. I shook my head. No. I bought the land to protect our family's legacy. You're the one who decided I didn't belong in it anymore. The board voted moments later. Unanimous approval for the sale, with one abstention. Our father never said a word, just sat still, staring down at the table in front of him. Nicole stormed out before anyone could speak to her. Not even a glance back. After the room cleared, Raymond came over to me, quiet as ever. Tomorrow, he said, the board will ask for Nicole's resignation. We'll need someone to step in, help lead while we restructure. I shook my head. Not me. I've made other plans. A year passed. I stood on the rooftop terrace of what used to be the Buffalo Hotel, now renamed the Harbor View, the pride of Commonwealth's Northeast collection. The view hadn't changed, that same calm ocean, the same salty breeze. Most of the staff were still here. Gabriel still handled maintenance. Guests still booked for the sunsets and the sound of waves. Samuel joined me up there, handing over the latest quarterly report. Revenue's up 17% year-over-year, he said. You were right. The local market had a lot more potential than we realized. These days, I worked behind the curtain as Commonwealth's regional consulting director, helping negotiate vendor deals, mentoring property teams, making sure standards stayed sharp. No title chasing. No corner office. No boardroom battles. Just honest work, which is all I'd ever wanted in the first place. Seen your dad lately? Samuel asked, voice gentle. I nodded. Yeah. Monthly dinners. He's figuring out retired life. After everything went down, he'd stepped away from Skirich for good. The company was still running 5 properties, though none were thriving like the ones Commonwealth had picked up. And your sister? Weber Vision filed for bankruptcy last month, I said. There was no heat in my voice. No gloating. Just the facts. Turns out running a hotel chain takes more than just ambition and a business degree. We stood in companionable silence for a while, watching the boats drift across the harbor. Eventually, Samuel excused himself for another meeting, leaving me there with my thoughts. A soft buzz broke the quiet, a text from my dad. Dinner tonight. Bringing the grandkids. I smiled as I typed back a quick confirmation. No matter what had happened between their mother and me, my niece and nephew were never part of that. I'd made sure the bond with them stayed untouched. As the sun dipped lower, casting that golden light over the water, I took one more long look at the hotel, not just the structure, but the earth beneath it. That foundation. The piece no one sees, but everything rests on. In the end, that's what Nicole never understood. Success isn't about having the biggest office or the flashiest title. It's about building something strong enough to last, something rooted deep enough to survive whatever storms come. I turned away from the view and headed downstairs. Time to get ready for dinner. With the parts of my family still worth holding on to.